The American Theater Wing and the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts bring you the American Theater Wing's Guide to Careers in the Theater. This session, The Dancer.
Hello, I'm Ted Chapin with the American Theater Wing, and with me today is Donna McKechnie, dancer, singer, actor, and legend. Can I say that?
Well, maybe, I don't know. They sound so old.
No.
I'm still dancing.
Absolutely.
So
we do want to talk about dancers primarily, and I do want to get later on to the fact that dancers are by their very nature, especially these days, actors as well. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about dancers. If somebody wants to be a dancer, let's start at training. Is training necessary, needed?
Absolutely. I was thinking on the way over here, I started in 1959. My first show was How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And I had very good training in Detroit, Michigan. And that was a long time ago, but certain fundamental things never change for dancers. And the first on the list is training. And the second would be health and care and maintenance.
Yeah. Did you take ballet or jazz?
Yes, everything.
And you think, and everybody should take everything possible?
I believe so. I mean, some dancers, as they grow up, they have their kids. Some are inspired as children. Most are, I think. And then they have an affinity for certain kinds or a style or whatever their personality dictates. But I think if you want a career, and if you get to that point where you begin as you have a professional job, by that time, if you have it, you have to branch out and study all things. And ballet technique is the most important, because that will keep you,
primed
and ready for anything. You can make a transition.
From
you have
ballet.
The fundamental classic training. You can make the adjustments easier.
From ballet? I
believe so, yeah. In fact, every dancer I know, they do a show, they get very busy, and when they ever need to get back into prime shape, they always go back to ballet class. Not tap or acrobatics or jazz.
Do the other classes come along in various parts of their career because of need, or do you have to decide pretty early on that you're going to have tap in the repertoire, for example?
Well, personally speaking, I loved to dance when I was young, so I wanted to learn everything. I was lucky because I had very good teachers in the suburbs of Detroit, and there are wonderful teachers all over the country. As you know, the caravans travel, and the Chickaty Council promotes conventions and everything. And if you have a good teacher, they will encourage, this to branch out and have. If you study in a big school where they have access to all different kinds of teachers, then it's available. And most dancers really want it. I mean, if you don't have it and you make a transition, as many dancers have started in ballet, and you get to New York, then you have to cover ground by being able to take those opportunities and work for different choreographers, because then you learn how to dance in different ways through the choreography that you learn for the show. But it's better if you get a background before you come to New York, I think.
And is dance training something the earlier you start, the better, or can you pick it up?
Not necessarily. Well, there are people that are really experts at this, that really know the body. A child growing up, I think the general age is like 8 or 9. Those small little bones. You don't want to, put those little babies on point shoes at 3, which some schools do. That's terrible. They need to grow up and grow and be healthy and then start, because dancing, is a very unnatural thing to do.
Explain.
In that you are forcing the body into, and it's all line, and so you're at a very early age, you're training your body to do things that aren't meant to be. Turn out, you have to change your structure in a way. And you have to be old enough to be able to tolerate it and then and be, go back into a normal.
And also understand
everyday.
it. I would imagine understand what it is that you're doing.
Yes, and as soon as you can, if you don't understand it, I really believe in dancers initiating their learning, and being informed about the body, even taking anatomy classes.
That's an interesting
reading about
notion.
it. It's very important. I wish I had, you know, because, you know, you grow up and especially if you have good training and you're good and you have this, you know, facility, I used to think that, oh, you don't need to warm up all the time. You just, you know, and jumps will always happen, you know, and they don't. And then when dancers are injured, even at a young age, they have that's when they start learning about how to take care, and it's a shame that it happens that way.
Having made a mistake and then having to backtrack a little bit. Do you feel that that the ballet discipline at an early age it is a good thing to set up for jazz, and is jazz equally important to ballet, or?
I believe so. I believe all forms of dance. I mean, Jack Cole was the father of our Broadway dance, you know, and references some of the kids today. I don't even know if they know Jack Cole, but
that
so
was when
it's important for me to say that name.
Well, good. No, and when you were growing up, was he the one who was Broadway? The dancers were interested in what he was doing?
Well, he was the father of it all, in that he integrated all of those authentic, and I underline that word, authentic dances that he really studied. The East Indian, the Afro-Cuban, he was such a, well, he was a student of dance all the time, but he was also a great teacher and a great mentor. And he created such excitement by translating, going over from the classic interpretation of these cultures. Really, it was gathering all the cultures of dance, and then putting it, funneling it through our musical theater expression. And it was very exciting at that period. And when he had, of course, Gwen Verdon at his side, and they were in the Hollywood years, and he developed his dance style in their cabaret shows, and then Broadway. You know, it was a very, and so as a young dancer, I looked up to him. I always wanted to work with him, but all the dancers and choreographers at that time and directors were under his influence. You know, they passed on that, and that's kind of where I came in, that bridge between Jack Cole and Jerome Robbins
and the others. What he did for the Broadway musical theater dance was to amalgamate all the different styles?
As Martha Graham did for modern, you know, our American modern dance, he did for Broadway.
Do you feel that people today have access to the same source material that he had, or are we now learning from what Jack Cole did and starting from there?
Well, it's like Matt Maddox, who passed on that, you know, who still teaches, and you'll get that kind of, if not the authentic, that Jack Cole, he had a whole series of exercises that referred to these all these many cultures and dance. And it's a warm-up. It's a way to warm up. And the jazz classes, as I knew growing up with June Taylor Studios and Variety Arts, remember that?
Yes, yes.
And Minskoff, you know, you'd get these great teachers like Jay Norman, Timmy Everett. I'm trying to think of all the jazz teachers. Luigi, they were all exponents from, you know, from Jack Cole. And there's a whole series, so the reference is still there.
But he had a whole process. He had a whole series of...
He developed a technique, a warm-up, a way to actually study this technique to take it to the performing art, you know, the stage.
How interesting.
Performance. And it's still very much present today.
And are there people teaching his technique in New York now?
They're all,
Or have they taken
you see the influence more than the technique. I mean, I remember going to a class in mathematics, you know, and I studied with mathematics, which was, you know, like studying with Jack Cole, and everything would be here. So everything was isolated, and you could see the hands. And I did that in a class the other day, and the teacher said, "Oh, I like that. Where'd you get that move?" And I told
it's like,
him,
learn.
And, you know, because they were doing their hands somewhere else. But it's like it's a very good way to keep the line and keep the isolation focused.
Now, interesting. When you just do that right now, I see an actor there. I mean, I see something that's not just a step and not just a movement. Do you feel...
It's vocabulary, yeah.
But do you feel that there is a time in a dancer's life where, by dint of something, they learn that it's more than just steps?
Well, yes, hopefully, of course, because you can't have a career without, you know, having that knowledge in your muscles, you know, in your brain and your heart, you know. That's the thing I love so much about theater dance, is that integrity of everything pulling together. I mean, even in the classical, the ballet companies, the dancers that become the soloists are the ones that have the integrity of and the dancer spirit that it just doesn't, there are no just steps. I mean, even in classical ballet, it's not just steps, you know, there's great storytelling, and the demands on the actor in the dancer is very prevalent, and that's what makes the ballet stars.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Are there teachers who understand that better than others, or is that something that's sort of born in you?
Well, I think if you're lucky, I think it's intuitive too. I mean, it's hard. I'm trying to think in a personal way about it. I always thought of myself as an actress, even when I was a kid, because the dance, it was never the movement that engaged me. It was the music. Mm-hmm. In fact, Marvin Hamlish wrote a song about that.
Right, yes, he did.
And
yes.
actually, that.
Right.
It was always the music that struck a chord in me. And it would create, my imagination would be stimulated, and I would envision beautiful places and beautiful dance partners. And then when I was taken to see the classical ballet at Giselle, I think, in Swan Lake, I was just, you know, that's all I dreamt of. And it was, so that was a beginning, but I would create stories and act them out. So the interpretive power through movement was more important to me than just the movement.
Well, and it's one of the things I have to say, I will never forget the Dance and Company, which was an isolated dance and a show that didn't really have dance in it. It was a lot of movement, and you did one dance that was not only riveting, but it was unlike anything that had gone on all night, and you couldn't help but realize, wait a minute, this is a story she's telling us.
Oh, thank you, yeah. Well, that's... Well, by that time, you're working with Harold Prince, Stephen Sondheim, Michael Bennett.
Right, you're not with slouches.
And Wally Harper, and, you know, no. So, and there was trouble on the road, you know, but these things don't just happen
overnight.
because everyone's so good. But, you know, it's dance is, you brought a point to mind that dance is abstract. And, you know, working with Bob Fosse as well as Michael Bennett, or any of those wonderful director-choreographers, it's very important to have a point of view. Every actor who studies acting knows what that is.
Right.
When you personalize and you have a point of view and you play the intention. It's the same thing with dance. All of they may not have instructed as they were choreographing the number. They may not have said those words, those acting terms, but it was inherent in the way that they would teach you the choreography.
So in theory,
or develop it with you. You know, what if? And you'd say, well, what's going on here? But everybody starts with, what is it about? Mm-hmm. In one sentence.
That's so
and
interesting.
dancing is abstract as it is. You know, it was like a painting, that, you know, that number in a way. It was not what it seemed to be. And how do you tell us, you know, but yet we had to score it like a scene with a beginning, a middle, and an end, so it pays off. And then beat to beat, it had to say, you know, it was...
Did you find in your early career that there were choreographers who were not interested in what your point of view was and wanted just to...
yes.
I mean, is that something that you would recommend young people not, sort of clamming up?
You're hired to do a job, and you go you know, if someone hires you because of the way you dance or what you did at the audition, you go ready to work and follow what their lead. You know, you're not the choreographer, but if you're spoiled a little, like I was with certain choreographers like Michael Bennett,
right.
Who was, you know, was exceptional that way. He really worked in a collaborative way.
But also, you met Michael as dancing together.
Right.
So obviously,
right.
you know, you know, you partnered together, right?
Right. But then when and a choreographer that I've always admired, and I still do. He's no longer with us. Ron Field was terrific. So when I worked for Ron, you know, all of a sudden I started dancing as he started choreographing. As I did with Michael, I would start moving behind him, and it would drive him crazy. He said, "Just stop it. When I can do it, when I do it, figure it out, then you can do it."
So you have to keep a flexibility.
And I had to, you know, yes, but I also had to respect what, you know, instead of going away pouting, you know, I had to respect that I was there to work with this choreographer, and this is the way he worked. You have to be flexible, and you have to bring. Fosse would go home and do all his homework. It was incredible. He would come and everything would be said. I remember rehearsing little finger and eye movement, you know,
Right.
his choreography. But it's exciting in another way, is that then with all the structure and all the work that he's laid out, everything, I think Susan Stroman works this way too. Then you come in, and then the challenge for the dancer is to do all this,
But make it your
instead
own.
of a robot, right, and bring, because that's why you're hired, because of the way you dance, which means more than the you know, the bravura of dancing, but your personality.
Let's talk about auditions and getting your first job. Now, you came to New York.
My favorite thing.
Well, should we skip over this?
I'd love to, but no, it's a hardcore reality.
Yeah, and how do you get your first? I mean, if you come to New York today, for example, how would you get?
Well, let's see.
Or how did you, and then?
Yeah. Well, I think certain things are the same, although I think dancers are treated a little more respectfully now. I believe so, in most cases.
That's good to hear.
I think so because of equity, and over the years, I mean, when Chorus Line, even, I love the fact that they put, that Michael wanted, and called us all kids, because that's what we were called.
In Chorus Line.
Yeah, because that's what dancers were called.
Right.
And so, boys over here, girls over here. We were boys and girls,
Right.
as opposed to the singers and the actors.
Interesting.
And it does. It's a subliminal message that you take in if you don't realize it and don't understand it, and that other people, you know.
A slightly demeaning.
Yes, and the longest hours, the least paid, and you know that's one of that's why Michael created the show, in part because he loves dancers so much. Most dancers love dancers, and most choreographers love dancers, because they see that heart and that hard work, and that was his Valentine to them. So I think now it's a little different, because it's wonderful when you can see a show about dancers and then learn something like that and go, oh yeah, you know,
That's
it's kind of demeaning.
And
so I think there's more respect now.
And when you started, scale was 160.
I think so. Yes.
And scale today is $1,220. We're
something
told.
like
so
that.
at least it's
Right.
better. But
classes are more expensive. now.
Yes,
They
and
used
living.
to be $250.
And how much are they
That's
today?
$2.50.
And
as
it's now
opposed to $12. Well,
Interesting.
still, it's a better ratio, I guess.
No, but that's pretty good. Do you go to class?
Oh yes.
Do you
yes.
teach?
I do. When I tour and do concerts in my show, I look forward to any chance I can to do a master class. I try to teach a class that I developed at the HB Studios in New York called Musical Theater Performance, where it covers auditions, and I work with dancers, singers, and actors. And what I try to do with a few basic exercises and just discussion and creating a safe place for them is to integrate all these things. So total theater is something that is not intimidating. In other words, I remember, it's different now, that you do, like you say, you have to do everything. Chorus Line, you know, far-reaching, many, like 23 countries over the last 25 years, 20 years, I don't know. It was like a little university. I always appreciated that people, dancers, boys and girls,
Men and women.
would if they got that show and they toured, they would become better dancers and singers and actors, because they were so specialized, those roles. And that's what you have to do today.
It's interesting. HB Studios is not a studio known for dancers, so I think that right there is an indication that it's a place of actors.
Right,
clearly.
and that's where I studied.
Yeah.
With Uta
interesting.
Hagen, and Herbert directed me in my first little workshop there. And then when I teach there, I love it because it's it's the most noble school. They still charge practically the same, you know, and students come from all over the world there, you know. But yes, and what I love about them is that my soapbox is that musical theater, American musical theater, is an art form. It's one of the wonderful things that we've developed in this country in a short history. And that's why it's there at HB, because with all their serious
drama,
you know, and classical theater, it's there because that's how they view it also. And so it's very important to give people a preparation for auditions where you have to do everything.
Were you dancing on Broadway when you started classes with Uta Hagen at HB?
Yeah, yeah.
See, I think that's great. So that you knew that it was an important.
I knew that my first show, How to Succeed. You know, I thought you just got a show every year, and work with these kind like Frank Lesser and you know and Abe Burrows and.
They all had a new show every year.
And Bob Fosse. And Gwen Verdon was our dance captain. She was a great star then, but that's what she loved to do. She helped Bobby get, you know, all of us together.
Did Matt Maddox also choreograph that show?
No, Hugh Lambert.
Hugh Lambert. I knew there was a co-choreographer listed.
Right. But anyway, what am I?
That's right. No, I want to.
Very important.
No. That's great. I wanted to pick up on you talked about Gwen Verdon being the dance captain of How to Succeed, and she was a star in those days, and she had
between starring in Broadway shows.
She was married to Bob Fosse, right? At the time where they were.
She loved being the assistant. She was to Jack Cole. She was to, you know what I mean? She loved working. She loved the means. She loved the being
process.
A mentor. Yes.
What is a dance captain? How can you define what that role is?
Well, a dance captain, you know, takes the notes and keeps the Bible, as it were, of all the choreography. And then when the choreographer leaves to do another show, the dance captain is there either in the show, in the ensemble, or watching the show every night and making sure it stays clean and focused and that the dancers are doing the right choreography, and if there are any problems, the dance captain is there.
Have you been a dance captain?
Never. I think it's a really hard job.
I would imagine, especially
and I've always run, you know, out of the room when they, you know, selected, you know, those selections.
But isn't it pretty much the choreographer who would select the dance captain?
Of course, and also I didn't work that long in choruses of shows to develop that kind of relationship that's required, I think, between a choreographer and his or her dance captain.
That's right. You became a soloist pretty quickly, didn't you?
Well, yeah.
I mean, I certainly remember featuring, you know, featured.
Well, I mean, I was silly. I mean, I was a kid, and I said, okay, How to Succeed. Now, I knew that I had to study. That's the point I was making.
Right.
I was a professional student. I really believe in it. All the money I made, all $160 after taxes, which was at 75, I put back into, I started studying acting. I didn't get this kind of training in Detroit, you know. And they didn't have colleges then, or schools like performing arts in these cities where they do now. But I studied acting and I studied singing and everything because I knew that if I was going to have a career that evolved from dancing in the chorus, because I did want to do, I always loved acting, that I would have to really be prepared at these auditions and just learn. And I got very excited by absorbing, watching these great masters put a show together, an original show, a book musical together. And it was a very exciting process to be able to see this process and to see that even the greatest people made mistakes. Mm-hmm. It was very humbling for them as well, and that you persevered. So all these lessons you learn by being that lucky to be in a show and, you know, and watch from the ground up.
The on-the-job training part,
right.
Part of it.
But I was silly to think that, you know, okay, I've done chorus. Now, I don't want to get labeled a chorus dancer because they might not give me a role if I audition. So this is my last chorus job.
Right.
And so when Bob Fosse called me for Pleasures and Palaces and Sweet Charity, I said, I'm sorry, I don't do chorus anymore. You know, missed a couple of great opportunities, but
they were the right decisions at the time.
They seemed to be.
Yeah.
But then 25 years later, we got together again. But yes, and I guess you can, I'm not putting myself down about that. I felt that was right at the time. But I think what I want to say to dancers is that just be a little more realistic. You need those hot air balloons, I call them. You need to keep the hope, the dreams alive, and some of that audacity, you know, the omnipotence maybe. But you
But
also have to be, the
confidence. I mean,
yes,
I would think
I kept seeing myself.
faith in yourself.
I felt that those labels at that time seemed to be dangerous to me.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they still are?
I don't think so, no. I think it's changed, and I think that's good. And I think you can be very proud to be a dancer, and to have a career as a dancer can be a wonderful thing to be proud of. I still think it's the hardest career, and it's heartbreaking, and it takes a lot of stress on your body. But I think if you really want it, I mean, you separate people immediately because it takes such a desire and love to be a dancer, that if you take care of yourself and keep studying and keep, maintaining, you can have a long and wonderful career.
It's interesting. I mean, certainly some of that goes with every role and every job in the theater, that you have to love it. But the fact that on top of all of that, your body really is your instrument, and it better be well tuned.
Right. And I do believe that you have to be able to do everything in musical theater. That's total theater to me. It wasn't ancient theater. You did everything. I mean, this is truly, I told you it's my soapbox, but it's truly total theater. I don't separate, plays and musical book. It's theater.
Well, that's a very good point
and
of view.
good choreographers don't either. I mean, we touched a little bit about, Bob Fosse picked people because of who they were as an individual, because he really wanted, and Michael did too, he really wanted the dancers he wanted everyone to matter, not to be a kind of a line behind a star, but to really have something to say and a point of view. And every character, every person in the ensemble in that particular number had to have their own character and their own history, where they were before they came on stage. And they were all different. They were not the same. Yeah.
Which I have to say, I will never forget the first time I saw a chorus line at the Public, and I knew nothing other than Michael was talented and I wanted to see the show. And when the curtain call starts and you realize, after having introduced everybody as individuals, no, just after having the whole point of the show, she suddenly says, "And guys, this is what it is. You're all going to become anonymous." And everybody's going to look alike.
And that's why it has to be such a personal thing. It's a real personal love affair.
Have you choreographed and directed?
I tend to, whatever show I'm in, so maybe I should do someday in a real way. I have choreographed.
Do you enjoy it?
I do. I tried. My first, musical show was when I did a show in London a few years ago. I did. I enjoyed it. But I'm not ready to make that commitment, I guess, full time. Wherever I can, do in little ways, I choreograph things whenever I can, that help something out. And I love directing, I mean, I see that someday. But I'm still too much of a performer in my spirit. I'm not ready to send a different message, I guess.
What's the farthest out there acting job you've ever done that you thought, boy, this is the biggest, this is a stretch, but I'm going to do it?
Well, one that I just did last year, I think we're going to do it again at Lucille Lortel's White Barn, the Come Back Little Sheba. Ah. It's a musical. It's a new musical. And that was really a stretch in a way.
And you enjoyed it?
Also, I just did, I'm going to do that again too. I did Gypsy. That was a stretch.
Wow.
That was a challenge. I have so much respect for Ethel Merman, I can't tell you.
And she didn't dance at all, so you didn't
it wasn't, but it was, that's total theater, that part. And I'll be doing it again too. So that's the great thing, is you can get, do these things again, especially these.
Did you get your first jobs dancing before you came to New York, or did you come to New York and look for your first Milliken show?
When I'm able to do these master classes at schools and colleges around, I do tell everyone, because the colleges now today, the caliber of teaching and the variety is for the performing arts is quite wonderful. I say now, don't be in such a rush to get to New York. It'll always be there. Make sure you get really good training.
Good.
If you have good teachers at home. It's cheaper.
Right. You can live at home.
And, you know, and so when you come, you will be confident, you will be ready. You can, you know, because I ran away at 15 because I joined this dance troupe. I mean, David Timar, I don't know if you, a name from the past, the dance company. It was quite a wonderful little, you know, we traveled in a U-Haul truck for $75 a week. That was my first job.
Out of Detroit, or was he?
No, he directed shows at the Cass Theater. And I went with a friend of mine to, she said, one girl dancer. And would you come with me to the audition? And I was very intrigued, and I went, having no idea that I would audition at all. Didn't want to, really, didn't think of it. And then when we got there, she said, why don't you audition too? And I said, well, I don't have any dance clothes. And she said, well, here's a leotard. And so I got it. And we're still friends, by the way.
Oh, good. Did she get it too? Or did
no,
you?
she didn't. They just needed one.
That's right.
I got the equity card, and I worked with the incredible people. And David Timar was the director. And Betty White did King and I, and Jeanette MacDonald did Bittersweet. And
wow.
I'm trying to think who else. It was quite
so you had a resume. By the time you came to New York, you had a little...
They called it winter stock, and the Cass Theater is no longer there. But so he called me in my senior year to do this little dance troupe, you know, this 6 weeks through the South, one-night stands, $75 a week,
right.
My big break.
Right, but hey, you know.
And my parents said no. And I said, you know, please, it's my big break. And they said no. So without going into a great story, that I did write this in my one-woman show, but I tell the dancers this, or the actors, I say, you know, I was lucky. I came to New York because I had good training. I was able to get work because my parents reluctantly let me go and thought they didn't support me, and they thought probably, well, we'll starve her out. You know, she'll get rid of out of her system and come back home. And I didn't. I got How to Succeed.
And just by finding that there was an open call, or did you have connections?
Yeah, well, there are trade papers. I think Backstage is still, you know.
It's still around.
And there is a, you go to class and you hear about things. And I was very young and kind of scared, but I developed this, you know, kind of defense mechanism, I guess. And I was fueled by, I'll show them, you know. And so it gave me, and I had good training, so I felt very confident, but I was really scared, and I felt really out of my league in many ways. So when I tell this kind of romantic story, I make sure I also tell them that it was very difficult and very painful and very lonely, and it's scary.
Did you ever, when you got that first job, were there ever moments when you thought, I'm a fraud, they're going to discover that I'm not up to this, or did you have an inner strength that said, I'm going to do this?
Like I say, I was fueled by, I'm going to do this. A survivor. But then when you are able to survive and you have the support and love of your family, and they know that you're going to be okay, because they just cared about me, you know,
right.
They were frightened for me. Well, they should have been. Then when all that resolves itself, then what do you do? What fuels you then? You know, once it's all okay, then you have to be very clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Right, and always think that. That's something you never lose. You never can lose, right?
Well, you have to know why you're doing, you know, and if it's not about showing you know, that's kind of a difficult thing to endure. That's very stressful, you know, and it's not totally realistic. So once I got the support and acceptance, then I was freer to be me and to have a real outlook and really see objectives.
How is there a sort of a normal period that a dancer can expect to have a dancing career? I know that's a question that has been dealt with before, but
well, let's see.
Or
as we, you know, we talk about these transitions that, you know, okay, so without being cute, I don't jump as high as I used to.
Who does?
But, you know, so you have to make, it's like I think I appreciate my sensibility as a young dancer, that I knew that to stay in this career, and I did love not just dancing, I loved all of musical theater. And I think I understood that that's what, and I think most dancers today know that they will make transitions to have a long career. As a dancer, it's not so cut and dried. I remember years ago, there would be the dancers, and then the singers. And the singers would always get, if they had one line or a crossover, remember crossovers?
Right.
Before they had computers? The singers would get the line because they could project. The dancers didn't sing that well and probably couldn't speak either,
Right,
so they didn't get the line. So you were overjoyed if you got a line, you know.
Right.
But those separations aren't like that as much anymore.
The triple threats.
Well, the separation of
Right.
dancers and
No, but
singers.
now
and
you have to do...
You have to do everything. You know, even in those old-fashioned revivals and the book shows, you have to, you know, you just have to do everything. And hopefully your career can go from dancing, singing, acting, and you know, if you can walk, you can dance. That's my credo. If you can talk, you can sing.
Okay.
And I need some of those hot balloons, too, to keep me up a little, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I don't want to be in denial about it, but I have to be realistic. But you have to respect. I mean, Gwen Verdon said to me, a dancer dies twice. And that's very true.
Wow.
And I thought, it scared me, and I went, I don't want to die twice. I don't want to die once, but I certainly don't want to die twice.
So
how can I go through that, you know, let these things go, but keep, you know, gain other things and keep dancing as long as I can. And I just think that common sense, you do take care of yourself, you go to class.
But discipline also, you have to have a discipline about yourself and your career and your life, I would imagine.
And also, you know, if they're not writing shows for dancers, and they don't, really, then you have to go out. This is another important aspect that I would tell any student today, theater student. Go out, read everything, option things, option ideas, develop your own, start writing, develop your own projects so that you can keep dancing and singing and acting. Don't sit around and wait for someone to do it for you. There aren't as many shows anymore that do that. I mean, in the 60s and 70s, you could go from Michael Bennett to Bob Fosse to Joe Layton, you know, every year.
Yeah.
I thought that's how it happened, but, you know.
Well, it did.
It doesn't anymore. And, you know, you have to make decisions about what you want to do. You know, there are dancers that, there's nothing wrong with being a gypsy and going from show to show. Dancers get married, have children, send their children off to, you know, performing arts school, you know, and they're going from show to show, but they last so much longer.
Where did you mentioned being a gypsy? Where did the notion of dancers are gypsies, right? Is that pretty much? Yes.
Well, I guess going from show to show, but there is a specific. See, now you've piqued my curiosity. I did hear about it originated in a very specific way.
And then there's the
That's a question for the audience. Maybe
the gypsy, right? And the gypsy robe, right? Which is a wonderful tradition. I know.
Yes, it's quite an honor.
To get to wear it, or I mean, isn't it?
I received it and passed it on.
And when is it?
Now there's that's in the Smithsonian. There was a.
And what's the tradition of the gypsy robe?
Oh gosh, I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to forget things. Well, I mean, it's passed on. I guess it started when dancers did go from show to show, and the most, you know, the oldest or the person who done the most shows, I think the most shows. As opposed to the oldest, would get the robe, or someone who, and if I got it, perhaps I would select someone in the next show that opened on Broadway.
With an ensemble of.
Yeah, so that robe was going places, you know. And then you would have to go at half hour to that show. You'd bring the robe, and everyone would gather on stage, the whole cast.
Opening night, this is right?
Opening night, and you walk around the circle 3 times. It's a tradition. And then the ceremony ends when you pass on the robe, and you wish everybody good luck, and everyone applauds and cheers, and it's all part of that opening night. Excitement. I think it's great that theater has those kind of traditions. And oh, by the way, the important thing is that the robe, of course, has souvenirs or things that, you know, are either made or sewn on by, you know, the person or the cast members, so that each show is represented by some beautiful artwork. Oh, I think that's great. I want to go back to something that you said earlier. You said that people aren't writing shows for dancers anymore. Have you ever had a show written for you? Chorus line. Well, that's, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, and I think early on Michael Bennett thought that he could change the face of, in a way, in terms of the workshop and original shows and dancing shows, and a way to do them more than anything. And didn't quite happen that way, you know.
Well, it happened for that show, but
it inspired other shows, but it happened for that show. But you just, it's too difficult to do that, you know, month after month. You know, I loved it, you know, making $50 a week. I shouldn't say that. Working on something that you really, you know, that was so wonderful, but it was hard, you know.
But do you think that dancers should stay in touch with writers who are writing shows now, and because
it's always been the singing, you know, leading lady, but never there's been a few that create the demand, and until it goes back to a star creating the demand, you know, you have to invent and network, yes, with people, because everyone's in the same boat if you're trying to create new theater, you know.
Do writers come to your classes at HB, or is it pretty much only actors?
No, it's everybody. Everybody. I encourage people to start writing. You know, just write and read everything. And with no objective other than you start stimulating I mean, the objective is so that one can stimulate their own imagination and their creativity. It's different. Your creative energy is different when you think in an artful way as opposed to thinking about, I'm trying to think, well, we were talking about steps as opposed to what do these steps mean.
Right.
And using music and all that, it's a different kind of energy that you use. And once you start being creative, it's amazing where it will take you. So I just try to get people into that discipline of just doing it and just see what happens. Don't expect anything.
Well, it is obviously a collaborative world, so and so you have to.
And that's true musical theater. It's collaborative, and
because in a funny way, auditioning is such a singular thing. I would imagine for a performer to learn the discipline of going in that room with facing that phalanx of people or being part of a dance combination.
Right,
you know, so that's a kind of the difference between certain singular things and then certain collaborative things.
You know, the hardest thing in an audition. I'm just going to say this because I don't forget. It's something I just haven't learned myself yet, but you have to go in with your heart open and everything. You have to put everything out there, and then you have to walk away and not think about it and not take it personally when you don't get it. It's heartbreaking if you do. You know, it's just you can't be reactive, and it's really hard. And so we do a lot of talking about how you have to go in and have that confidence and that belief system and support system, not just being alone, but have a group of people. Grover Dale did something wonderful in Los Angeles with the dancers out there. I was privy to some workshops. He started some support groups. It's highly competitive, you know, when there aren't that many jobs, but everybody started, you know, helping their friends, and if they couldn't do a job, they'd call somebody. But you talk about auditions and working for certain choreographers and how to be prepared, how do you have to look good, the basic things that you have to go in and make a good impression and be prepared.
Do you sometimes get different opinions as to what you should do for an audition? And you'd get confused because somebody says do it very plain. Some people say take a real bold step, or is that a problem?
Yeah, it's all that. And don't look at them. Don't look them in the eye.
And don't do a song written
look
by the
over their
composer.
head, right? But I don't think those. I think you can get really confused and inhibited with those rules. I think you have to take each thing as it comes and think, what can I, if this part is right for me, what can I offer this? What is right for this? Which song? What is my point of view? What can I bring? What connects with me in a real way, in a truthful way, and bring that to bear as much as you can. If it means singing this song, I mean, if they say don't do this, and you don't.
Right, don't.
But you have to go in and do what shows you off best, and wear what makes you look good, and be, you know. There was one thing that I thought of. Oh, this was something that it's a clue. It's fear. I would go and work on a song for an audition. And I'm not the only one that's done this. That's why I'm using it. And I would, at the last minute, I would change my mind and think, no, I got to do this song. And my accompanist would say, but you don't know that as well. I know, but I think this is right. Well, it's fear coming up and anxiety, and you're, so that you can always say, well, I didn't know that song as well. In other words, you have to be prepared so that you can go out and give 100% in the right way, and then have the courage and fortitude to walk away and say, I gave it my all. I gave it my best. And that's it. That's all I can do. I don't look like someone's aunt. You know, maybe they were, you know, hired someone who, for whatever subliminal reasons, I've been on the other side. And you never know. And these people come in, and you want them to just relax and be confident. Try as hard as they can.
No, absolutely.
And enjoy themselves. It's awful.
Well, and I know, you know, having sat occasionally in that room, and
Don't you suffer for people?
Oh,
they
I
come
do.
in and they want it so much, and
also, I mean, the thing that I observed fairly recently, which I thought was amazing, is an actor who came in and absolutely took over the room. Because, I mean, that's a dangerous thing to do, but he was in control.
Well, it can be threatening to a director, you know? It's like you want...
He had Trevor Nunn and Cameron McIntosh in the palm of his hands, and I thought, wow, that's going at some distance. Obviously, I would imagine you would recommend that any dancer or an actor should seek out whatever courses or classes, you know, can help them with things like auditions. Are there other things that you think they should also seek out, other classes?
You know, the best class is just experience. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. And you learn a lot that way. And have, you know, I think support groups are really wonderful, and to have friends, and you need that. I think you need that.
I would also imagine if you take a job that you regret, you would need your support group. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're into something and you thought
you know, you have to work hard at turning any bad situation into something good.
And how do you do that?
You be creative, you know, you or else at a certain point, if you are really compromised, we have a union, you know, that's pretty good, that will listen.
And,
if you're too compromised, then you have an agent, and you have to find a way to get out. You know, at what point you
stand up for
compromise?
yourself.
Yes, that's a very individual thing.
And the union is Actors Equity, or is there a dancers?
Well, the director, the SSDC is,
right, the
is for
choreographers and
choreographers.
directors.
But equity, yes. Well, they have great people who will listen and give advice, and equity also has wonderful programs for dancers and health programs. The free clinic is something that I never had when I was growing up in New York.
So you feel that there are a lot of support groups and a lot of specific support
yes,
things now.
Yeah.
Good. So seek
and we
them
need
out.
that more than ever now.
Do you find situations where you will sense something's wrong in a show that you'll be in, you know, that either a director or choreographer needs a little talking to, and it's sort of not within your direct purview, but you think that you might just take that person aside sometimes? Or do you sort of let it go?
Yeah, that's a mistake. I did that. That's a mistake, because then you get involved in a way that you just, you know.
Shouldn't it?
Right. Then you have to be responsible for things that start bouncing off the wall. And but I do remember there was a company of actors who were fantastic, and we were all very professional. You have to be, otherwise it's it's undoable. When in trouble, go to your professional ethic, you know. And we all, there's too many personalities. But I remember a group of a company of actors got together, and we challenged, before we went to equity, thought we'd take it this way, we challenged the director.
As a group? As
a group. And we said, we can't do it this way. We do not like your choices. And we have one day, and we're going to, and I've never seen it before, probably never will again. It was painful, but we all gathered together, and as a group, as a committee, we restaged the whole opening of the show. And this was not Broadway,
right,
of course, but I don't think it could have been done if we didn't all come together as a group. And we were all very.
Were you successful at
we did it. We got
problem?
on, and it wasn't embarrassing.
Yeah.
We did it, but it was very painful. And I thought to myself, I've never had that situation before. At what point do I say, I quit, I leave? You know, because I was raised in an era where the show must go on, and that Calvinistic background also from my family and religious training. You start something and you stick with it.
I think
I
that's a
don't
lesson
know.
that you can't say enough in this day and age, especially, I think.
Right.
When dancers and actors decide that their careers are available to them?
Well, over the years, a lot of people have made transitions into physical therapy.
Having
Dancers.
come from the other side?
Yeah, you start learning a lot, and then you continue your education. That's happened a lot. And there's a wonderful organization started by Cynthia Gregory, Career Transition for Dancers. You know, they've done some wonderful things in helping, enabling dancers to go on to further education in other ways, becoming, you know, working in computers or design for the theater, or, you know,
Well,
so many different things.
And I love the people who stay in the theater. I mean, because I think there are people, I'm sure, who get to the point for whatever reason they say either they lose the love, and,
Yes.
and the balloon, the hot air balloon, falls to the ground, and they decided to do something
Right.
else.
I bumped into a dancer I started with years ago, and I said, "What are you doing now? You know, are you?" Oh, no, I'm a dresser over at this show. You know, and she has another career, but she's with, you know, the thing that she loves, and she's doing theater.
Are there good young choreographers? Do you feel?
Yes, there are.
Oh, good.
We had a tragic loss prematurely of too many choreographers, and I always felt there was well, you never know, but there's a natural contour bridging from generation to generation, because musical theater is living, and you pass it on. That's what we do. If we can pass it on through television and film, that's great. It reaches more people, but it's
live.
It's live. It's a living organism. And I felt that a tragedy for all of us was that we lost a certain one era, moving into, you know, going into another era and influencing.
And was that mainly because of some premature deaths, or just because
so.
Style changed or something?
I think it was that, and I a lot of things, and I think style too. You know, times change things. But there are too many young dancers who don't know what, you know, don't have the references, and the barometer was, for a while, the bar was lowered. I would work in companies, and I was appalled at the discipline or lack of it. And I thought, my God, you could never get away with that.
And, yeah.
You know.
You have to
And
raise
that's
the-
like, it reminded me of, you know, like young children when they push the boundaries, when they're in their 2s and 3s, and they're rebellious, and they're, you know what I mean? They're so desperately needy of discipline or support, security, you know, through knowing, you know, where to go, what to do. And so that bothered me for a while. But in the last few years, I mean, just the other day I went to see Thoroughly Modern Millie. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
So charming, so delightful. And Rob Ashford is the choreographer. I think he might have assisted Graziella.
And Kathleen, I know. He's worked with Kathleen
Yes,
Marshall.
maybe that's it. You see, so these people, there's a way of, again, passing it on, being mentors, working, experience teaches, and he's he did some wonderful things. Dance as metaphor, just clever, and it's very hard to create a whole dance number for a group, an ensemble, and have it be so specific and funny.
Well, I also remember you saying at one point to me how Michael Bennett would decide which bar on the music in a dance number he wanted the audience to start applauding. And I remember when you said that to me, I thought to myself, boy, you can't start a dance deciding that. That comes at a level of such expertise, and you know, it's got to be cooking by that point, and then, you know, right. There's the one.
Right. And you use your own instinct, your own timer, you know.
And listen to the audience and see what they have to say. Do you think, generally speaking, that the rules apply equally to, I'll use the words, men and women dancers, boys and girls, in terms of transitions and timing and careers and stuff?
Oh, yes, I think so, because it's a human thing we're talking about, you know.
It's
Everyone's individual talent, but as a group, you have to have, you know,
It's interesting that there are historically in the American musical theater there are women choreographers and men choreographers, and there seem to have been, I don't know if equal numbers, but certainly there have been, you know, men and
yes,
women
it
all
is.
the way.
That's right. I didn't think of that, but you're right.
I mean, Agnes DeMille was a major force,
Right.
you know,
And
before.
Anna White when I was coming up. Right.
And Susan Stroman today and stuff
Right.
like that.
It was
And
usually the exception, but now it's. I think it's a lot better.
is there any sort of overall advice that you would give to people who have the fire burning in them and they decide they want to be dancers? Any advice that you would give? Or what advice would you give?
Well, just do it. Just go for it. Just do it. Keep those dreams alive.
Any things
know?
to avoid? Any?
Oh gosh, I just think that I would focus on the positive things and being very and really the fundamental things that you need, the requirements, being realistic. You have to have the training. You have to go where the right help is. You know.
And keep training. You had said earlier that you have to keep if a tap show comes up, you have to you keep the training going.
Expand your thinking and your ability. Yeah. Your
Always
training.
be a student. Continue.
Yeah, I think you have to, and keep and a most important thing is to really take care of yourself. Learn about health. I didn't when I was younger. There's a lot of information out there. It can be confusing, but I think it's really important to talk to your friends about diet, and if you know, and make sure that you're getting the right food and vitamins, and just taking care of yourself.
I love the way you talk about the community. It makes one feel that there is a real community of people, and you should use the community and be a part of the community.
Yes, yeah.
And learn from each other and
Oh yes, yeah.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I think your career is a remarkable model, and if anybody can come anywhere near what you have accomplished, they'll be doing
thank you,
well.
Ted. Well,
We could go on forever.
I'm still doing. You know, I mean, I'm still struggling and still going to class and.
Yes, and I was
but
just
it's
2 days
that's
ago.
part of it,
2 days
yeah.
ago, somewhere we said, "You think Donna McKechnie could play this part?" And I said, "Yes, I think she absolutely could."
Oh.
Anyway,
good, thank you.
this has been great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
We've been talking with Donna McKechnie, dancer, singer, actor for the American Theater Wing. I'm Ted Chapin.
The American Theater Wing's Guide to Careers in the Theater is a project of the American Theater Wing and the New York Public Library's Billy Rose Theater Collection, Theater on Film and Tape Archive.